Welcome to the dungeon with Harlan and Andrew.
Hi, hello. We are here. We're going. Welcome to another episode of the dungeon. We are not muted. My audio's on. I'm Harlan
so
Kelly.
Distressful. I'm so nervous. I didn't even want to make a noise.
No, we often accidentally mute ourselves here. So
that is a glorious streaming mood. Yes.
And now I'm like, I've been molded by it to be nervous and not want to speak. I'm Andrew Orbital.
I'm Harlan Kelly, and today we have a guest, as we do every week here, which is Frank DB from Bard Community College, and Witches of. Oh man, I just had it. Woodside. I said
Woodside.
It's that thing where I was like, don't say Woodstock, and then then all that could come out of my mouth
think about
in
elephants.
that moment was Woodstock. Yeah, so Witches of Woodside. Sorry about that, Frank.
No problem.
But yeah, thanks for joining us here.
I'm glad to be here.
We have a standard first question that we ask on the show that we usually have to get people to not chit chat with before the stream, because it's a common way to jump in. So could you tell us about your origin with tabletop role-playing games? How'd you get into it? How'd you start?
I was ridden by a radioactive D20. I started, this was back in 2014. I had just come back to my hometown here in San Diego, and I was going to a community college taking media communications classes. I was in a TV studio production class, which was where I met a lot of my now longtime friends. And I overheard a conversation about someone saying, hey, we're going to be playing D&D. I'm like, that sounds cool. And I went. We had one game, and then due to scheduling conflicts, we couldn't get everyone together for another 3 months. And I just was like, no, the world has just been opened up to me. How dare you close off again?
Yeah. So did you do the classic move that both Andrew and I have talked about on here before, which is that you start as a player and the game doesn't continue, and so you start DMing because you're like, I have to play more.
So it ended up being that my friend, my DM, who was lovely, just their life got crazy, and so I just was like, oh, you know what? I'll go ahead and step in. I think I got something for this. And that one shot became a campaign, because like a lot of writers, you start writing and then you just don't stop. It just continues.
That's how it is. That's how Andrew and I have talked about this before. It's just once you start, there's a certain type of, it's every type of person, but I feel like it really scratches that itch for me that a lot of other things does too, with just like, I want to do this more. It rewards that, which is fun. So
yeah,
that's great. And so, tell us about your show that you're streaming on Bard Community College right now.
Yeah, so I stream every Monday at 5:30 Pacific Standard Time. I stream a show called Witches of Woodside. It is a Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition game set in a modern day campaign setting, based off of the real world. So the players are actually college students at a private school in Los Angeles County. And it's entirely a game based on, if the way I describe it to people is, what if every conspiracy theory that anyone has ever come up with was true to some extent? And it's awesome. Like, so there are all these magical magical people and magical races that have to hide their identities. They have to mask the fact that they have magic. Everything is overseen by an organization called the Institute, which is kind of magic men in black. And there are lizard people who are literally disguised as humans. So it, like I said, it's like every single conspiracy theory, every single mythology is correct to some degree. And we are going to be exploring a lot of the lore of the campaign setting in a few upcoming episodes, because our players may be going to a location.
They're in the chat, just to warn you.
They're trying. Well, they're hoping to get some secrets here.
Well, so. No. They know. It's really just the people who haven't gotten through the first like half of the episodes so far. No, the people who have been watching know that the players are planning this. They're going to my settings version of hell.
Oh boy!
For reasons that I won't discuss, but because those are spoilers. But they are going to what's called Downtown, which is the mythology neutral underworld setting that I came up with. I came up with this actually with my friends in my original modern D&D campaign, where we had one player who wanted to be half angel, half demon, and wanted to have been in hell but not know that they were in hell. So we came up with the idea Downtown, which looks like a completely average big metropolis. So, and it's every underworld and death deity are, and the main punishment of those who are doomed to wander downtown is that they are forced to live incredibly mundane lives where they have to do jobs that are so menial and like,
so it's a horror
so
setting.
Close to yes, and get so close to what they want, but not quite enough. And the way I described it
Capitalism.
Is it would be Socrates. Socrates would end up being a preschool teacher. So he'd be like, okay, so we're going to discuss this and debate, and they'd all just be like throwing their pants at each other.
That's awesome, man. That's so cool. It's so cool to hear such a unique setting that you clearly feel a lot of freedom to do what's exciting and fun for you with 5th edition rules. It's so cool. We talked to the GM Connie, who was on a couple weeks ago, and they were telling us a bunch about their campaign, about taking these rules and making them whatever you want. And it seems like this is such another unique way to do that, to really just run free with what's already there. And I'm going to just, Andrew, if it's okay, I'm going to go ahead and jump straight into one of the questions from the chat, because it's a great question.
No, it's the perfect time, yeah.
What issues do you come across if you come across any running 5e in a modern day setting?
I think the biggest problem is that a lot of people come in with the assumption that certain rules would have to be dramatically altered. Like that, you wouldn't be wearing armor, so we clearly have to all be wearing like leather jackets. But I don't run it that way. I actually just came up with a character using some of my own rules, who is a paladin who, by their base like starting equipment, they get chainmail, but he wouldn't wear chainmail. So he works with an organization from the setting that enchants clothing to work as these different kinds of armor. So I feel that the assumptions that people come in with are the biggest hurdle. Like the armor. Oh, and guns. Guns are seen as incredibly powerful weapons in our modern day. But the thing is, if we all made it so that people with guns had like ridiculous damage dies, there would be no way to keep up with that in the mechanics of the game. So instead, I go, listen, Firebolt does a D10 worth of damage. That's a lot. That's a lot of damage, because you gotta remember, commoner stat block has 4 hit points. So and if you have a hand crossbow, that only does a D4. In the hand of an untrained person, that D4 is going to mortally wound, if not kill someone, depending on the damage. So I feel like the assumption that you have to do a lot to change everything is the biggest hurdle.
Man, I love that so much.
In your world, is a gun equivalent to a hand crossbow? Is it like 1d4?
Yes. So I've made it so that hand crossbows are equivalent to handguns. The light crossbow is the equivalent to like a typical rifle or a shotgun. And a heavy crossbow is the equivalent to like a sniper rifle or something really heavy duty like that.
Yeah, because even in 5e, like there's printed stats for guns in it, and they do they only do like a D8 damage. I think the GIF have in Mordenkainen's, but might be a D10.
Something like that.
Even though like I think exactly what you're saying in your kind of like line of thinking is so good for a modern day setting, but it's also just great approach to D&D is taking it and being like willing to expand what is there into whatever you want to do.
Yeah. And the big thing with the crossbows is I have it so that certain weapons like guns and crossbows, they are interchangeable depending on your character's background. So, for instance, if you are from the surface, you're more likely to have training with guns than you are with a crossbow. But if you're from the settings, more magical setting, the Undercity, you're more likely to have training with your crossbows and regular bows. So it's interchangeable depending on character.
In the game, does training work like proficiency? Do you have to get trained before you can?
Well, it depends on your class. So like with a class that would be proficient with martial weapons, we would go in assuming that your character, for one reason or another, has some training with martial.
Cool. Are all of the classes and races from 5e available in this modern day setting, or just?
I have not said no yet.
Nice.
I have people in our League fan Discord who are constantly asking me, so can I play this? And I'm like, give me a second to think about that and how that would fit into the setting. But as a tentative answer, yes, you
nice.
Can.
I just love that approach. I love like hearing you not like just have enough care with your world and your game too, that you're like, yes, like the answer is yes, but just let me think about it to like connect it to these things, because it's not automatic, but it's still there. That's super cool.
And it puts you in a positive frame of mind to figure out how it can work.
Yeah, that's world building by itself. Yeah.
I had a very interesting situation where I had to figure out how to fit the Eberron race, the Kalash Tar, into my setting. And I was like, okay, so I have a couple ideas, and I guess this could be dependent on the character, but the one that we ended up ending on is that the Kalash Tar are aliens, like extraterrestrials.
Hell yeah.
And their homeworld was destroyed in a great cataclysm many years ago, and they all instead of having the mechanic where they don't dream because they don't connect to the dream plane in the Eberron setting. The way that I explain it is their dreams are instead memories of their ancestors of their homeworld.
Yeah.
Nice. That's so cool.
It's so cool.
Just as a quick aside, I played as a Kalistar in 2 different games, and in both games I wanted to be a polite player, so my character would always ask the other characters if they could speak telepathically, and 100% of them said no, so I never got to use my race's cool, unique telepathic feature.
Oh my gosh!
They're like, no, I don't want to speak with you. Don't talk to me in my brain. And I was like, okay, all
right, that's fine.
That's so cool. Yeah, I love that. I love that. That's so, because like every conspiracy theory is true. That's as soon as you said that, yep. I was like, oh yeah, that's what the rule that you set for your world, like operating with something that's there. That's so cool. And just because it's super related and fits in, right? Let's ask it before the roll chart.
Totally. Yeah.
Connie from Transplanter, thank you for hanging out. They asked the question: what are your inspirations for the setting of your campaign? What drove you to do this, to do this modern setting?
So I, that's a lot. So the very first thing you should know is that I've been messing around with the idea of a modern campaign setting for the longest time. Because I grew up, I love movies and comic books like Hellboy, and I like The Men in Black, and I like I'm trying to think of Harry Potter would count as one, even though you spend so much of the time in the magical world.
Right, like Buffy or like Umbrella Academy.
Buffy or the TV show Supernatural.
Yeah.
So I love all these different media sources, and I wanted to be able to tell stories like those. And I've been toying around with the idea. I did get a chance to run a modern campaign setting where it was far more based on supernatural. And all my players were hunters, and they ended up very similarly. They ended up going downtown and accidentally kicked off Ragnarok.
Let's go.
And they had to find a way, because Ragnarok is cyclical and it has happened so many times, they have to find a way to break the cycle. Which I just that game was fantastic. But I hadn't been able to play that game for a while. My podcast game, which I do have a podcast, we'll plug that at the end. But my podcast game was on hold temporarily because of scheduling conflicts, and I was like, I just want to play, and I was just sitting there at 4 a.m. I work overnight. I was sitting there at 4 a.m. at my job, and I just went, I'm gonna put it out there, and I made a video, and I was like, hey, I think a modern day campaign setting would be really cool. And some people were like, that's cool. Some people were like, that's stupid. And I'm like, cool. Thanks, guys. And I finally just went, okay, you know what? I'm just going to put it out there. And I went, okay, hey, I want to do this. I want to stream it weekly. Who do you think I should invite? I left it up to the people watching my videos, and I got quite a few people tagged. And I ended up with the lovely cast that I do, and it has been a ride ever since.
That's so cool. So your game started because you didn't know each other beforehand. It started just because of your mutual interest for this campaign setting.
The only person that I personally was in contact with before this was Sarah at Sarah's Coffee. She and I met up. Well, we became mutuals on TikTok very early into both of our runs on TikTok. She then blew up, and I'm blown away, and she's fantastic. She deserves every bit of it. But she and I knew each other, but everyone else I actually met because they were suggested. I believe the first one to really jump in was Cecilia at celestial.seal. And she was like, hey, can I invite this other person? And I'm like, cool, sure, why not? And I ended up with my incredible cast.
That's so cool. Wow. That's awesome.
That's so cool. That's so fun. It's just like such an organic way to do it and have that moment. That's awesome.
Honestly.
On the subject of Hellboy, and I don't want to go.
Yes.
Andrew said last week.
Abyss,
you said last week that this was your favorite comic. When you said that, I got so excited.
Yeah. But I was curious if you had played the original Hellboy tabletop role-playing game, and follow-up question: did you kickstart the new one that they just released?
I didn't even know they had an original.
It's based on GURPS. It came out in 2003. It's pretty crunchy. I have the book, and I was like, I feel like, and I was like, I'd rather just convert this to a 5e module, and that's what they did with the new one. Nice. From Mantic Games, the people who made the board game.
That's really cool.
It's just a 5e module of Hellboy and everything. So I'm excited.
That's cool. I will inevitably steal from that.
Nice. Someone asked actually in chat how specifically how Hellboy has influenced your campaign.
Oh, well, let's start with the fact that the Institute itself was based, it's partially based on Men in Black, but it was far more based on the organization. I forget exactly what it's called. It's an acronym from Hellboy.
BPRD.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. Andrew, I love it.
All right.
I had a feeling, but I didn't want to say it and be wrong.
Yeah, I get it.
But
I did it at the top of the show.
But that organization was definitely far more what the Institute ended up being based on. And I also have just introduced another organization from history that was also I got because of Hellboy primarily, but also somewhat because of Supernatural, the Thule Society.
Sorry, Andrew. Sometimes Andrew has to go because he's got dogs that are quite big and need attention. So just a heads up, he's listening to you. He'll just be right back.
All right, no problem. So the other organization that I have just introduced on stream is the Thule Society, which is a real historical group from Nazi Germany.
Oh boy.
Where and for anyone who might be wondering, they're the bad guys. Okay. Just before anyone
jumps to it.
Yeah. So the Thule Society, Hitler's occult secret organization from history, they have just been introduced into the campaign setting and were a part of a vision that one of the characters had, so they know that these Nazi witches, as we call them in my setting, these Nazi witches are here and they are after at least one of the player characters.
Man, all conspiracy theories are true. That's so good. Yeah. Wild. Cool. Well, we have 5 more minutes here. If we want to go ahead and Andrew, if you could pull up that random roll table, and Frank, if you look at that, got that D20 handy.
Yep.
And roll on it. We change out the 1 when that happens. So if you get that, it's happened before.
Okay, I got myself a good old 5.
5. All right. Well,
a 5.
Not a critical failure. Still get to add your bonuses to it. Let's. What do we got as a 5 on the table?
Of 5. Do you have a favorite set of dice, and if so, why? We have our Discord for our Better Than Her show, and it's out of control.
Absolutely not. All of my dice are traitors. So my first set of dice ever. I wonder if I can find them. They're probably in here somewhere. Nah, I won't look for them. My first set of dice that I ever bought for myself, because I was stealing dice for the longest time because I was a broke college student. And my first set of dice were these wonderful green and gold dice. Whenever I rolled damage, never rolled above a 1. And whenever I rolled for anything else, I never got above, I think, a 9. And that character died so fast.
Oh,
granted, I was playing a sorcerer in Pathfinder, and they get a good old D4 for their hit die.
Yeah, that's
right.
math's not real. There are just some people who roll low all the time. I'm sorry to Tad, our mod, who knows all things about math, but there's some people who just roll low, and there's some dice that just roll low, and it's terrible.
Yeah, like Aaron in our game, he's got the hot hand.
He'll either roll a 20 or a 1. That's all it ever is.
I've played with him countless
there is
games.
Nothing in between.
Yeah,
that's too good. That's too good.
We have another question in chat here. Did you consider any non-5e rules that are closer to the setting, like Monster of the Week? I'm not familiar with Monster of the Week.
Monster of the Week is a game that uses the Powered by the Apocalypse system. I have played a brief game in Monster of the Week. Fantastic game. Some of the way that Monster of the Week is made has influenced how I made the setting. Stuff like there's the race, the monstrous. So a lot of it is based on just making typically monstrous or evil things no longer that, and judging people and races based on their actions instead of their history.
Yeah.
So stuff like that I've involved. Again, another thing where I got the ideas for the Institute. They have the agent role, or something like that. So I know a lot about Monster of the Week. The mechanics of it is fantastic if you like a very improv heavy game.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, I enjoy the planning of Dungeons and Dragons, and I did not want to leave that much up to chance.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thanks.
Fair.
So
yeah.
This is a question that just. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No. Yeah. It's a system. D&D, especially if you're someone who is as comfortable modding it as it seems that you are, and making it in kind of going off book and doing what you want, does provide a lot of structure and freedom for you to do that. So that's awesome.
Oh yeah.
This question just popped in my head when you were talking about prepping. Do you use maps like in a Roll20 system? And if so, do you use like maps of downtown LA, like satellite maps? No.
No. Most of the maps are improvised in my head, based off of real life locations that I know of. Like I may have teased the guys with before the stream, Woodside University may or may not be completely based off of a school that I went to after high school, and so I have a lot of those like sense memories in my head of how everything is. I will likely be making maps, however, for when we go to downtown, because I don't have anything for that. So
that's cool.
No sense memories of hell. That's good though. I mean, good. That's
well, I mean, life is a living nightmare, but
right, yeah. Look around us. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Welcome to 2020.
Even the role-playing games are in hell. Yeah, that's so cool. I mean, I'm so excited to check out your show more now too. It just I'm a huge Buffy fan, and I know Andrew's a huge Hellboy fan, so this seems like such a unique thing, and
totally.
I appreciate you coming here and sharing it with us.
Of course.
Yeah, and do you want to tell any folks watching it here now or on YouTube later where to find more? We'll drop those links in the chat, but
So,
give us your plug.
You can find Witches of Woodside. You can find it live, and for the first week as a VOD.
FNAF 2 we're doing right now. My dick is weirdly positioned.
We stream live Mondays
Ow!
at 5:30 p.m.
That hurt my butt.
And you can also
the
find
couch with my feet when I stood on it and teabagged my friend.
On YouTube as well at the Bard Community.
I want this to be a cold open for a double jump video.
You can also find the first 6 episodes of the show
Welcome to the
on my
bloopers.
YouTube channel, as well as on my YouTube channel. The playlist is complete. From episode 1 to our current episode, just all the VODs, nice. Because we switched channels at episode 7. So that's where you can find Witches of Woodside, and you can find, if you want more typical D&D, you can listen to my podcast. It's called Roll for Chaos. I do that show also with a bunch of TikTokers, and you can find that wherever you listen to your podcasts.
Nice.
Amazing.
That's awesome. Yeah. And according to chat, there's a lot of crying.
There is a lot of crying. Our tagline is literally where everyone is hot and sad.
Yeah, that's what they said. Cool. All right.
Hey, sounds like LA. Am I right? Haha.
Yeah, it's true.
Hey.
That's awesome.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Frank, for joining us. Everybody go follow.
If you're watching, Harlan and I have a stream on this channel. It's Mondays at 7 Pacific. So after you're done watching Witches of Woodside, it's called Better Than Heroes. It's set in the Spelljammer setting. And this month we're doing some spooky one-offs. We streamed 10 Candles last week, and we're going to do it again Saturday the 24th. Another game of 10 Candles. We ironed out all the kinks, so look for that Saturday the 24th. It's very fun. But yeah, anything else, Harlan?
That's it. Thank you so much for hanging out with us, Frank. We'll don't forget, tip your DMs. Tip your DMs,
if you
everybody.
can, tip your DM. Throw them a buck.
Do it. All right. See y'all later. Bye.
See you next week.